Lovely starshine lights my way to bed. Magic rainbows glisten in my head. Just like a child I live in Wonderland.
Hi and welcome to Handmade by Ditsy Tulip. I'm Mel and thanks for stopping by my channel. In today's video I'm going to share with you my latest make, which is my ginger jeans. And here they are. So let me just explain to you what I'm going to share in today's video. So in today's video I will share my review of the ginger jeans pattern, how to sew with top stitch thread, I'll show you that at the machine, an up close view of my jeans and the adjustments I made to make sure that they fit. Just sharing with you the little caricature I've drawn of myself there, just to remind you to don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And just go and click that button now to get the reminders. Okay, so these ginger jeans have been a long time overdue. I purchased the fabric from Guthrie & Garney. It was probably about a year ago now, and I had them cut out within a couple of weeks of buying the fabric, and I started them. You may recall I did share a couple of videos on some tips on cutting out the fabric and things. I will leave a link in the video notes if you want to skip back to that video. And then they've been stuck in a bag and I've just not got on with them at all. And if I'm being absolutely honest, I think what put me off is I did say that I was going to try and do a sew along to making the ginger jeans, but it just made it far too difficult because it meant that I'd got to plan every time I was going to do a sewing session, where I don't tend to work like that. I just squeeze in bits of sewing, even if it's 5 minutes here and there, and that was just stopping me from getting on with the jeans. So I decided that I wouldn't continue with the sew along. So I do apologise for anybody who wanted to see that, but I do sewing and I do vlogging because I enjoy it, and it was stopping me from enjoying it and making it take a year to make jeans, which isn't great. So what I will do, as I said at the beginning, is share some tips on, some top tips on sewing the ginger jeans, but they won't be done as like a sew along style. What I'm going to do is use some scraps of fabric and show you some of the techniques that I used. So first of all, let me just share with you a bit about the jeans that I made. So this is the pattern for anybody who isn't familiar. I'm sure you are familiar with the ginger jeans, but you can get different versions on the waist rise. And although I absolutely love how high-waisted jeans look, they don't work that great for me. As an IBS sufferer, they're not the most comfortable, so I went for the mid-rise jeans, which I find really, really comfortable. The fabric, as I say, is this nice denim from Guthrie & Garney. I'm not sure if it's still in stock because it was about a year ago when I purchased it. And then what I've done is I've used some scraps of Liberty of London for the waistband and the pocket, so I will turn them inside out and show you the insides shortly. I wasn't sure how this denim was going to work out because it's quite thin. It's difficult to show you on the video, but it's not a super thick denim. It is quite thin, so I wasn't sure how it would work out, but I've wore these now every day for a week since making them, and they, of course, it's stretch denim, so it does give a little bit, but I haven't got saggy knees or anything like that, so I do think it's a good quality denim. So the key thing that I'm pleased with on these is the top stitching. So I have made gingers before, and I managed to get the fit great and things, but what I wasn't happy with was my top stitching, but I'm really pleased with how these have turned out. I'm just going to bring it in closer and show you. So you can see I've got top stitching on the fly, top stitching around the pockets, and if you look at the back, you've got it on the yoke and on the pockets at the back as well. So the key difference on these and when I made my last version is I've used a much longer stitch length. I've used a stitch length of 3, which just makes a more defined stitch. And I've used the proper thick top stitch thread, apart from the bar tacks. So for bar tacks, I've used standard thread for the bar tacks because I didn't think my machine would handle doing them in the thick thread. But that's worked out fine. And then I've also got the top stitch on the sides, and again with the bar tack, and all the way on the inside of the legs. And of course finally on the hem. So the top stitching is one of the things that I want to just add in some top tips. So I'm going to record a separate video because I'm going to show you some things at the sewing machine with some scraps of denim on how I got the top stitching to work for me. And the machine that I used, hopefully you can see in the background here, is this old vintage Bernina Record 830. It's absolutely a super machine for the top stitching and top stitch thread. Previously I tried with this Memory Craft 9000 and it was much more difficult to do the top stitching on this. It would get jammed up a lot in the machine, and I only had one jam throughout the whole of this jean making experience using the Bernina. So definitely you know, you can't do a million things with that machine like I can with the more electrical one, but the purely you know, the simple style mechanical machine I found worked really, really well. So what I will do is I will just skip to a different video where I share some tips on top stitch. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just show you some tips on the top stitch. The audio might go off a little bit here because I can't attach the microphone to my phone while I'm recording in this way, but hopefully you can hear okay. So as I said previously, I'm using the vintage Bernina machine because this works really well with top stitching. And what I've got on the top of the thread that gets threaded through the needle is the proper top stitch thread, which is thicker than your standard thread. I've got a jeans needle, and that a jeans needle's got a larger eye, so it because it accommodates then the larger, the thicker thread. But in the bobbin, I've got just standard thread. You don't put the thick thread in the bobbin, else it will just jam up. And then I've just got a scrap of fabric here, so I've got it pressed as though I was making jeans, because you press the seam to the side, so you can see it there. And what I'm going to do now is just show you how I did the top stitching. Okay, so just to show you some of the settings on the machine first of all. So I've got this set to a straight stitch width, which is 0 here, and I've got the stitch length set at 3. And you may need to twiddle about with the tension a little bit. What you basically want to ensure is that you haven't got any of the thick thread showing on the wrong side. You may just need to do a bit of a practice and tweak your tension. But to get the top stitching so it's nice and even, and you want it slightly away from the seam line, what I do, rather than trying to keep a straight line, is I actually move my needle. So what I've got here is, I'm not sure if you're going to, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, but there's like a little groove on the foot. I'll take some more video and show you closer if it's not showing, but the little groove on the foot, and what I do is align that groove up with the seam line of the fabric. And then what I'm going to do to make sure that I've got that even stitch is I'm going to move the position of my needle. So I want the needle sewing just to the right of the seam line, so I'm going to move the needle 2 clicks that way. Okay, just to show you the detail on the sewing machine foot, this is what I was talking about. Here is the little groove on the foot, so I just ensure that that little groove is lined up in the seam line, and because I've moved the needle that way, that will then keep it at the right distance. And my machine can handle back stitching with the thick thread, but a lot of machines may struggle with that, so you don't actually need to do back stitch if you don't think your machine will take it. What I will do is I'll show you how to fix that later, but what you want to do, you want to make sure that you've got a tail hanging at the back, and keep hold of that when you start sewing, but don't do the back stitch. So let's just start sewing, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the little notch on the foot is staying lined up to the seam line, and that will give me a nice even stitch.
Just like a child, I live in Wonderland. All my dreams are coming true.
And then again, don't back stitch if your machine won't take it when you get to the end. Just pull that out and leave a tail. So you can hopefully see there, that's the first layer of top stitches, and it's nice and even along that seam line all the way along. And you can even make the stitch length a little bit longer if you want to. I like 3, but if you wanted it a little bit longer, you could do that. You could make it a little bit longer. So what I'm now going to do is the second row of top stitch. So for the second row of top stitch, it depends on how far away you want it, but what I'm going to do is move my needle back to the centre, and I'm just going to again use the foot as the guide. So what I'm doing here is lining up the edge of the foot to the stitches that I've just sewn.
Just like a child, I live in Wonderland. All my dreams are coming true.
So that is the second row of stitches, and that just helps to ensure that it's nice and even all the way down. Okay, so in order to secure these threads, if it is that you know that this seam is going to get enclosed in another seam, so for example, if I'm going to attach a waistband, then you don't need to do anything, because it will just get enclosed when you stitch the next seam over it. So you just need to make sure that the thread is on the inside of the seam, so you can then snip it off. If it's not going to get enclosed in another seam, all I simply do is use a hand sewing needle. So thread it through the needle, and then all you're going to do is push it through to the wrong side of the fabric. And you'll have your bobbin thread on the other side. Then you'll just tie a knot. And that will then secure the threads. Okay, so let me show you the inside of the jeans now. So I used some scraps of Liberty Tarn-Lawn for the inside of the waistband and the pockets. I'll show you the pockets in a second. And I wanted a soft waistband. Again, as I say, I suffer with IBS, so I don't like anything too tight around my stomach. So I interfaced the outside of the waistband with a knit interfacing, which makes sure that it's still got plenty of stretch, and I didn't interface the waistband. Now I did go for the version with the pocket stay pockets as well, which means the pockets run all the way across, which again kind of holds you in comfortably in the tummy area, which works really great. But I wanted to check if anybody else has made these, because on both versions now I've ended up with the pockets not being even, and I'm not sure if it's me being really stupid and doing something wrong somewhere along the line, but I'm just not sure why they aren't even in the middle, and it bugs me a little bit. So yeah, if anybody else has made these, can you let me know if you have the same thing, and is that how it's supposed to be, or am I doing something wrong along the way where the pockets aren't quite even? So can you see what I mean? So this side comes up, it comes down lower than the other side in the middle. So really not sure what I'm doing there. But anyway, it's on the inside, so nobody else knows other than me and you now, because I've just told you about it. But yeah, it does really make them comfortable having this pocket stay around the tummy area. It keeps a nice shape on the jeans. So yeah, definitely try that out if you haven't already. Adjustments wise, now I obviously graded my pattern the first time I made the gingers, and my size hasn't changed, so I was able to use the same pattern. However, I did do a basting fit before I stitched them properly. I nearly skipped doing it because I thought, oh, you know, last time they fitted perfectly, but I'm so glad I didn't skip that step, because this denim must have a different stretch than the last denim that I used, and they were too tight in the calf area. So what I had to do on these is grade the seam allowance. So I did the normal 5/8 around the hip, and then when I got to the knee notch, I made the seam allowance smaller to 3/8, which obviously gave me an extra 1/4 of an inch on either side, which just gave me that extra room in the calves, so that really helped with the fit. So definitely, even if you've made the gingers before, the denim will vary every time that you make them, so definitely do a based fit to make sure you're making any adjustments that you need. So the other adjustments is I shortened them, so I had to shorten this pattern loads. I think it was about 6 inches or something like that I had to shorten them by. I do like to wear my jeans more kind of ankle grazer length, so they're probably a little bit shorter than what they need to be. That's my taste, my style, but they would be way too long on the pattern length. I'm 5'3" with an inner leg of about 27, so yeah, the length that they come on the pattern would be way too long. I graded between 2 sizes, so I was slightly bigger at the hip than at the waist, so I graded between the 2 sizes to make them fit. And I did a sway back adjustment because I do have a sway back, which means it gapes at the back around the spine area, so I did adjust the waistband for the sway back. Now, on one of the previous videos that I've done on the gingers, I have shared how to adjust the waistband for the sway back, so again I'll leave a link in the video notes and whereabouts to watch time wise to see that. But that's it. Oh sorry, one final adjustment. I did a very slight crotch adjustment where there's a useful tutorial on Closet Case Patterns website which says if you've got creases going in certain ways, you need slight adjustments on the crotch area. So all it simply meant is I just sewed it a little bit wider in the seam allowance in an area of the crotch, which then fixed that problem as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you what these look like worn, so I'll just skip over to another video where I'm showing them off.
Heavy shackles used to hold me down. Now my feet don't even reach the ground. Just like a prisoner when his sentence ends, all my dreams are coming true. And I owe this happiness to you. Love has changed my former point of view. Just like a butterfly, I've got new wings. All my dreams are coming.
So that's what I wanted to share with you today, the ginger jeans. Really pleased with how these turned out. The fit is absolutely great, and if I had more denim in my stash, I would definitely have just cracked on with another pair because they're really enjoyable. They're that if you're putting off making jeans because you think that they're too difficult, please don't, because they're not difficult at all. There's just lots of steps that are involved, but there's nothing particularly difficult with any of the steps. Even the zip fly, so if I just show you. So even the zip fly, it really isn't difficult if you follow the instructions. It guides you through step by step how to do that. And my buttonhole worked out right first time on this as well, and I very often struggle with buttonholes, so that was good news also. So definitely, you know, give it a go. The fit is perhaps the most difficult thing, but there's some really useful guides on Closet Case Patterns website on how to get that fit just right, and they're certainly going to be a better fit than what you would get from the high street with standard sizing. So even if they don't turn out perfect, I would definitely give them a go, and it just feels such an accomplishment when you've made a pair of jeans, because they are quite, as I say, not difficult, but there's lots of steps, so they're quite technical. I think I'm going to give the other ones a try, the ones that aren't stretch. I can't think what they're called. I'll put some text in or put a picture in. So there's another Closet Case jeans pattern where they're not a skinny fit, they're like a boyfriend fit, and I think I might treat myself to some really nice quality denim from Merchant and Mills and give a pair of those a try as well. So I'll keep you posted about that. So that's it, that's all I wanted to share today. Oh, I did forget to mention I'm in a different room today. I normally film in the conservatory, but it's absolutely roasting in there, and I wanted to show off this lovely thing that my dad's made for me. So he's been doing a bit of woodwork and been making some benches out of some old wooden railway sleepers, and look how perfect that is for a little bench to make my sewing table more usable. So yeah, a nice shelf to keep the sewing machines that I'm not using, which then means I've got a whole load of space on my sewing table, whereas previously I was crammed into one corner of the table because I was trying to fit the different machines on. So I just wanted to share that with you. Isn't my dad clever? So that's it. Have a wonderful week, whatever you're up to, and I will see you very soon. Bye.
All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming.